Hi, welcome back. My name is Bob Bianca. I'll be with you at 3 o'clock. So we've been breaking down the Skylar Richardson case. Fascinating case right now. Was this baby born stillborn, in which case the defense will win the case? Or was the baby born viable and then killed, which is the state's theory of the case? It's going to be really fought out here. Prosecution, I think, going a little less on forensic evidence as opposed to circumstantial evidence about how she acted and reacted. And the defense is going to be obviously taking their shots. And so far, everybody thinks that the defense has the ability to be able to score some serious points. Nevertheless, prosecution obviously isn't going away in the night. They're the ones that brought the indictment in the first place. They're the ones that start off a trial. Opening statements occurred today. Let's listen to a little bit more of the prosecution's opening statement. All right, prosecution's opening statement there in the Skylar Richardson case. Before we go any further, we have another great guest, Matthew Mangino, law and crime legal analyst, former district attorney out there in Lawrence County and author of The Executioner's Toll. Welcome back, Matthew.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let me get your initial reactions to this case. What do you think? I mean, is this going to be a tough road for the prosecution to prove here based on the forensic evidence, or do they got an easy walk?
I think it's going to be a difficult case to prove. Obviously, this is a classic situation of a young woman concealing a pregnancy and then, giving birth in her home. The question is, was the child born alive? Was the infant born alive? And, that's going to be what this case hinges on in terms of the prosecution. Without evidence that, in fact, the child was born alive, that the child may have been stillborn, those are the fundamental questions in this case.
Sanford, let me ask you, does the fact, and like Matthew's saying, and I agree, it's a fundamental question in the case, was the baby born stillborn or was it born viable? Does it come into play at all in your mind based on your extensive experience with jurors that they're sitting there looking at this young girl who is 18 years old and they could be saying to themselves she just did not know how to properly handle the baby being born stillborn?
Obviously, but something was missing from that opening, and that was, what was the cause of death? What caused this baby to die if it was born alive? Nothing in this opening addresses that issue. And I think that's going to be a crucial issue here as to guilt or innocence in this case in terms of the evidence that this prosecution has to put before this jury. What was the cause of death if the baby was born alive?
Yeah, I was saying this, Matthew, in all the years I tried homicide cases, I can't think of one that I can think of where I was actually trying to prove it's actually a murder, folks, and not something else. Usually it was pretty clear it was a murder. Now, the manner in which the murder occurred or how it occurred or who did it may be in dispute. A little unique set of circumstances for the prosecution here to the point that Sanford's making.
And you have the other piece here, which is going to be shoved down the prosecutor's throat, that they put out in the press initially that the baby was burned after it was born alive, which they had to retract.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And I agree. I mean, the issue is, what is the cause of death? Just like any other homicide case, this is a homicide case. And the prosecution has the burden of proving that, in fact, this infant was born alive and was murdered. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are right now. And I think it is important, as was pointed out, that wasn't touched on in the opening statement.
Yeah, not that we know of. I mean, I personally have not listened to the entire opening statement, not from the clips that we played so far, but that obviously is going to be very important. Let's listen to a little bit more of the prosecution's opening and see maybe it's in there. Okay, the advent of modern science and modern TV, no audio, but the producers will let us know as soon as that audio feed is back up. So it gives me an opportunity to bring in yet my third most awesome guest here today, Gene Rashi, hashtag 4041, legal analyst at the Law&Crime Network at Al, hashtag Excelsior. He's got it all. Gene, how you doing, bud?
Good afternoon, Bob. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, been a little while. So, Gene, initial thoughts. I mean, we've been talking about this case. What do you think for the prosecution side? What are you hearing that's going to convince 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that this baby was born alive and not stillborn?
Well, Bob, I got to plead ignorance. I've been in Skype hell for the last hour, so I haven't heard the testimony. So I got to apologize for that.
No worries. Fair enough. It takes a big man. That's hashtag Excelsior. No problem at all. So, let me throw it to you, Matt. What do you think about that? Do you think that this particular doctor who actually forwarded the information ultimately to the police is the first person she claimed, the defendant, that she told that this baby was born stillborn? The doctor was in shock. How could this possibly be? Is this a good witness for the prosecution?
Well, not necessarily. If she's going to testify as she has that the defendant in this case told her that the infant was stillborn, I think, again, as I said earlier, this is the fundamental question. If the child is stillborn, then this is not a homicide. If the child is born alive, then it may be a homicide, depending on whether the prosecution can prove that in fact it was an intentional killing of this infant. So, this witness is important to lay a foundation about this case, but it's not necessarily the smoking gun, so to speak, with regard to the defendant's culpability.
Yeah, Sanford, what do you think about the idea, to Matt's point, is this a witness that's good for the government when that witness is saying, when she asked what happened to the baby, this girl finally, according to the doctor, says that you're the first person I'm telling you, explains what happens, and then breaks down sobbing about it?
Look, there's one point here that I'm perplexed why the doctor didn't testify to it. Did she tell the doctor the baby was born stillborn? The doctor said in her testimony that we just heard, the baby was born and I buried it. Nothing about being stillborn. Now, did the doctor just leave that out for some reason in terms of trying to help the prosecution? Or was it never said? Very important piece of evidence that perhaps we'll find the answer to in cross-examination.
Well, let's see if it's going on. I'm being told by the producers we got the audio back, so let's go back to court. Okay, Gene Rossi, since that was a quick break, I want to go to you first. You had an opportunity to listen to the cross-examination by the defense attorney. I'm not going to lie to you, Gene. I'm impressed by this guy, okay? He had demonstrable exhibits with him up there, and he basically had the prosecution put in a spot where they had to say, well, maybe the exact metrics that are put in your chart that are supposed to be done for accuracy and safety for this child in the highest area of medical malpractice that you can get, you're telling me that he may have used his hand, the other doctor, as opposed to using a measurement? And now they're trying to actually argue against the information in the medical records. I thought the defense did a great job on that point with Cross, because he brought out it increases the possibility, the measurements that were in that file, of being stillborn.
Bob, I can just tell you on a scale of 1 to 10, this was an 11, not only because of his style. It was a very constructive cross, no yelling and screaming. You were following him, just excellent. And I understand this is a father-son team. They impress me. The second reason is what you just said. When you get their own expert, their own doctor, to say there's a high risk of stillbirth, that sentence alone to come out of the mouth of a government witness is money. That is reasonable doubt. And he got the government's own witness to say there could be a high risk of stillborn. That is phenomenally helpful to the defense.
Yeah, Matthew, I just want to go to a point of common sense. I'm just asking, this is how I'd be arguing it if I were the defense lawyer, if I even needed to. Everyone knows, especially when it comes down to babies and OBGYN, these guys don't play with regard to measurements and things that they're documenting in a file, because it can really be the end of a career. And moreover, more importantly, the end of a baby's life or a mother's life. So I think this jury walks around and says, this prosecution redirect that the measurements may not be accurate in the file is plooey.
Well, the one thing that I want to point out, Bob, is, it's never a good thing when the prosecution essentially cross-examines their own witness on redirect. And that's exactly what happened here. And he made, and good points were made during cross-examination, which the prosecution had to lead their witness through to try to address some of those issues. And this certainly wasn't a good witness for the prosecution in this case.
Wow, yeah, interesting. We got to leave it there on this particular issue, guys, because we got a lot more Law and Crime Network here, but we got to do a little business. And when we do, the next question, I promise, goes to Sanford for sure. Stick with us. We'll be right back.